In this video, I am going to talk about the theme, the plot and the structure of All for Love play by John Dryden. We will notice the difference between this play and Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra. All for Love has the same theme, the same story of Antony and Cleopatra, yet the way they dealt with literature, and the way they presented characters and tragedies and plays in the neoclassical time are quite different from Shakespeare's. Actions in All for Love start after the Battle of Actium. Actium, the battle, in Antony and Cleopatra was the turning point for everything. It was actually where the crisis happened. And Antony at that time was despaired and at loss. This is in particular what Dryden's play manifests. It is about Antony and his decline. He is hopeless and weak, moans and weeps to demonstrate the situation of this despaired character. This is the beginning of All for Love. In addition, this is the first difference we notice between the two plays. At the beginning of the play, namely the first act, there are some foreshadowing of events in which the two priests of Egypt foreshadow events and tell the future. This is, of course, a Shakespearean technique. Shakespeare used to present in the first act the general situations, the general information about the play, what is happening or going on in the play, and he used to give a background about the characters. Although Dryden follows the same thing, he is not as quite successful as Shakespeare. In the first act, he introduces the atmosphere of the play. We have two priests talking about the future of Egypt. We are familiar with Alexis, who is Cleopatra's follower. All that he concerns about is to keep Antony mixed. Ventidius is there also as Antony's friend, a loyal friend, who tries all the time to take Antony back to Rome. Notice that Alexis is trying to keep Antony in Egypt, while Ventidius is trying to take him back to Rome. This happens all through the play, and Antony keeps swinging from one side to another. He keeps changing his mind. In the first act, the general situation is introduced. It is more or less the same situation of Antony and Cleopatra. Antony does not want to listen to his friend, he does not want to go back to Rome and become the prisoner of duty. Dryden does not forget to present the two worlds, the world of Egypt and the world of Rome contrasted again in his play, but again not as quite successful as Shakespeare's. The same description of Antony is repeated here. He is the bravest man, a strong soldier in spite of all these images of glory. His love to Cleopatra has ruined him. Turn to page 20 in Dryden's play All for Love, and notice a sort of foreshadowing of events. 𝐳𝒐𝒗𝒆 says, "Last night, between the hours of 12 and 1, in a lone aisle of the temple while I walked, a whirlwind rose, that, with a violent blast, shook all the dome. The doors around me clapped. He is just like a dreamer. There was a strong wind imagining that things, dreadful things had happened last night. These horrific things are to prophesy that event. The iron wicket that defends the vault, where the long race of Ptolemies is laid, burst open, and disclosed the mighty dead, greater than from out each monument, in order placed." This character describes the spooky event which he witnessed at that night. The iron doors were open with a blast. They defend the place where the large race of the Egyptians is laid. The dead were to come out. An armed ghost starts up, the boy king last reared his inglorious head. Actually, this is the atmosphere of the play. It is an atmosphere of destruction, of an atmosphere of hopelessness. Then a lamentable crying voice was heard coming out of the cemeteries, "Egypt is finished, Egypt is no more." My blood ran back, my shaking knees against each other knocked. On the cold pavement down I fell entranced, and so unfinished left the horrid scene. At this stage, he imagines that he is seeing the end of the world in Egypt. Those monuments, those graveyards were opened, and those dead were to come out. There is a lot of groans and lamentable voices crying the end of Egypt. In fact, 𝐳𝒐𝒗𝒆 is preparing us the atmosphere of the play. Immediately, later on, we know what is going on, that Antony has lost the battle. On page 24, again, the two worlds are contrasted, the world of Rome and the world of Egypt. We are given the 2 points of view. The Egyptians want to celebrate Antony's birthday. They want to enjoy life, thinking that it is a great event to celebrate, whereas Ventidius comes to represent the Roman point of view. He thinks that this is a silly thing to do. Serapion says, "Set out before your doors the images of all your sleeping fathers, with laurels ground, with laurels wreath your posts, and strew with flowers the pavement. Let the priests do present sacrifice, pour out the wine, and call the gods to join with you in gladness." They want to have wine, and even get the priests to celebrate, and all that kinds of celebrating stuff. Ventidius' function here is to pull Antony out of this mess and to take him back to Rome where his dignity is. Ventidius says at this context, "Curse on the tongue that bids this general joy." Can they be friends of Antony, who revel when Antony's in danger? In other words, curse come to the tongue that God curse you and curse all your joys. It is not the time of celebrating because we are in war. While Antony's friends are reveling and celebrating, he is in danger. Hide, for shame, it is shame to do this. How dare you? Ventidius represents the Roman point of view. Ventidius, by the way, has managed to convince Antony to come back with him to Rome. He tells him that his soldiers are fighting in Syria, but they will stop fighting very soon. They won't go fighting, and he should give up Cleopatra. They think that it is worthless. It is useless to go out and fight while he is selling the kingdom for a kid. He does not care. All what he cares about is his passion and love. On page 33 Antony insists that Cleopatra should not be saying, "Please stop insulting my queen." Ventidius answers him, "Behold, you powers." God is meant with the word powers. This is actually the core of the tragedy. You know, Antony the Great is destroyed by passion and love. This is the core of all for love. Ventidius, "Behold, you powers, to whom you have entrusted humankind, see Europe, Africa, Asia, put in balance, and all weighed down by one light. Worthless woman. I think the gods are Antony's, and give, like prodigals, this nether world away to none but wasteful hands." Antony is giving up everything to a worthless woman, and this is the reason behind the anger of the Romans. I think the gods are Antony's, and give, like prodigals, this nether world away to none but wasteful hands. Antony the Great is helpless and weak. The end of the Act 1. He decides to go with Ventidius. He has the desire to fight with him. In Act 2, Antony decides to leave. Having decided to leave for Rome, Cleopatra arrives and tells him, and begs him not to desert her, expressing her love to him. Dryden inserts emotional and sexual scenes expressing sentimental emotions and feelings. Astonishingly, Antony decides to stay. By the end of the act, they both remember those old good days they used to have in the past. He changes his mind and decides to stay in Egypt. In the third act, he swings again and decides to leave her under the impressions of Ventidius, Dolabella, and Octavia. The third act shows him swinging back to Rome and makes up his mind to leave, for sure. Ventidius is Antony's loyal friend who wants always to protect him all the time. Dolabella also is an old friend of Antony. He does not appear in Shakespeare's play. He is the one who persuaded him to have peace with Caesar. But apparently this old friend used to have a love relationship with Cleopatra in the past, and this is why Antony has stopped talking to him. Antony is jealous of this past relationship. Now, Octavia, Caesar's sister, comes to Egypt bringing Antony's 2 little daughters. She begs him to have peace with her brother Caesar, to reconcile with her brother, and he will be the ruler of the whole East. She promises not to bother him anymore, and will not take part in this. All that she will do is to keep her title wife. Octavia is after saving the situation, the family and his honor. In this, she is a good wife. Antony the weak person is touched by this genuine feeling, touched by what Octavia offers, and thus decides actually to go on with the peace process. Having been told by the arrival of Octavia in Egypt, Cleopatra comes on the stage, and starts fighting with Octavia. So, they start yelling against each other, the mistress and the wife. Cleopatra is almost faint at the end of the third act. Now, in the fourth act, Antony's decision is weakened again. He sends 𝐷, his friend, to go and tell Cleopatra that he is departing. At that time, Alexis, who wants to keep Antony in Egypt, plays a jealousy game. He tells Cleopatra to rouse Antony's jealousy, because Antony knows that 𝐷 in the past used to have a love affair with Cleopatra. So, he wants to give Antony the impression that this past relationship is revised again. Cleopatra accepts this game reluctantly. She did not want to do it because it was against her wishes. However, she yielded to it at the end, and they both flatter each other. He went to tell her that Antony is leaving. Because of that they start flattering each other in front of Ventidius and Alexis. Now, Ventidius, who wants to take Antony to Rome, liked this and he thought that it is a chance to raise Antony's anger against Cleopatra. Both of them want to make use of this game. One wants to pull him towards Cleopatra, and the other one wants to pull him away from her. Of course, Antony at the end finds out the news and gets mad at everyone in the play, and he is in the act 2 to be left alone. Now in the fifth act, the final act, Alexis is again trying to play the last game. He goes and tells Antony that Cleopatra has killed herself. Nobody tells him to do so. Remember, in Shakespeare's play, Cleopatra tells him, or her follower, to do this false report. However, Alexis here wants to keep him in Egypt, so he tells him that she has killed herself. Antony asks his friend Ventidius to kill him. Out of agony, Ventidius kills himself instead, and Antony falls on his sword. Cleopatra arrives at the end, yet she kills herself. The play ends up that the whole town is under the control of the Roman Empire. You know, Caesar gets everything, and this is the end of this tragedy. It seems as if the action is directly related to the love affair, the love relationship between these two. The action describes Antony: shall I go to this side or to that one? What shall I do? So, it is just describing the relationship, the infatuation of Antony and Cleopatra. The structure is going up and down according to this kind of relationship, either to go for Cleopatra or to go against her. Because it is in the 17th century, a heroic play being influenced by the French neoclassicism, Dryden followed the classical three unities which we mentioned before. There is a prologue at the beginning. This is another classical technique. Notice that the prologue begins before the first act, and the prologue is also a classical tradition. The place is the Temple of Isis in Egypt. This is the same place all over the play. Time is after the Battle of Actium. Because Dryden sticks to the unity of the place, he misses things. So, since the place is in Egypt, we miss the opportunity of thinking in Athens, that is in Rome. You know, Shakespeare's Antony, Shakespeare's places were plenty. We are in Athens, another event takes place in Rome, Sicily, Egypt, the boat, Actium, on Pompey's ship. But here we have one place which is Actium, the Temple of Isis, in Egypt. This is a neoclassical tradition. Antony appears on the stage after he loses the Battle of Actium. He is in despair, declining more and more. We miss the high spirits of Antony. Shakespeare's Antony does not enjoy himself in Egypt. He enjoys love and life in that play. We miss him making peace with the three Roman leaders. We miss him celebrating the peace with Pompey. We miss him in his enlarged position, in his strong stand. We miss him preparing for the battles, and taking decisions for his own. Shakespeare's Antony is always taking decisions. He loses battles and friends, and he goes up and down. Finally, he disintegrates. Here, we only see Antony declining, and going down. A hopeless man he is. In fact, we miss this multiple side or the multiple faces of Shakespeare's Antony who appears in all situations. Actually, Dryden follows this, the three unities, and he said in the preface of the play that he had followed the three unities correctly. Dryden says this on page 8. The fabric of the play is regular enough, as to the inferior parts of it, and the unities of time, place, and action, more exactly observed, than perhaps the English theatre requires. Now the unity of action is a quality observed. The focus of the play is on love, on the destructiveness of passion. This is, as the title indicates, all for love. All the world was in love. So, either love or nothing. Love is focused on, and it is the main issue. The rising and falling of action have to do with the desire of Antony to stay next to Cleopatra, or to leave her for Rome. The action shows Antony destroyed by this passion, of course. Antony is destroyed by this kind of relation. There is a conflict swinging between love and honor. Antony is always between love and honor. So, the focus of the play is only on the main subject. This is what the unity of action is all about. Because of this unity of action, we lack the panoramic view of Shakespeare. You know, Shakespeare illuminated many areas. Writers of the neoclassical tradition had to focus only on one issue, which is love here. Shakespeare's universal issues are so interesting. The internal and external conflicts in Shakespeare's play were presented successfully. Past, present and future were also presented in Antony and Cleopatra. Joy as opposed to despair and sadness, femininity as opposed to masculinity were all given full description. However, here we get only despair and sadness and decline in the scale of the characters, especially the hero and the heroine, because of the destruction of passion. Dryden's subject concerning this tragic love story is limited. All for Love lacks the wide range of areas that Shakespeare concentrates on as usual on most of his plays, whether they are comic or tragic. Because of the importance of the three unities, readers and so audience are not allowed to see things on stage happening in different places or in remote areas or in the past. This traditional technique of using the three unities and be stuck to them affect the course of the play and inflate its importance. The author has to resort to narration technique. He has to narrate to the audience what is happening somewhere else, because he cannot get himself out of the temple of Isis or out of Egypt. Therefore, he uses a lot of narration and the memories. An example of this narration is on page 46 to 47. Antony is narrating things that happened in the past. This is when he met his queen. Of course, this technique, namely the narration, was used by Shakespeare too. He used this narration to enhance the character, or to reunite other areas he wants to concentrate on. But here he is obliged to use it, for he has no other choice. Antony says, "When I beheld you first, it was in Egypt. Ere Caesar saw your eyes, you gave me love, and were too young to know it, that I settled your father in his throne, was for your sake." Antony and Cleopatra are talking about things that happened in the past, when they first met. He is telling the audience what happened, then how they first met. Antony: I left the acknowledgement for time to ripen. Caesar stepped in, and with a greedy hand, plucked the green fruit, ere the first blush of red, yet cleaving to the bough. He was my lord, and was, beside, too great for me to rival, but I deserved you first, though he enjoyed you. When, after, I beheld you in Cilicia, an enemy to Rome, I pardoned you. The rest of the passage is telling you what happened and how he fell in love with her, and the destructiveness of their love. Again, on page 48, he is telling what happened after they met. Antony says, "If I have urged a falsehood, yes, else, not. Your silence says, I have not." Fulvia is his same old story. Fulvia is the first wife. Fulvia died, pardon, you gods, with my unkindness died, to set the world at peace. I took Octavia. In Shakespeare's play, it happens at the same time. It was told by the messenger, but it actually happens simultaneously. In All for Love the situation is different simply because it is narrated for being a long time ago. Again, when he married Octavia, this happens actually on stage. The audience or the reader is allowed to see this peace process or reconciliation between Caesar and Antony, and the price was poor Octavia. Octavia functions as the mediator between the two. We are allowed to see this marriage which is meant to serve political purposes. This Caesar's sister, in her pride of youth, and flower of beauty, did I wed that lady, whom blushing I must praise, because I left her. You called, my love obeyed the fatal summons. In Antony and Cleopatra, Enobarbus was trying to persuade him to fight by land, where he is much better than by sea. However, he refused strenuously. All these actions happen on the stage. We do not see the battle, though we know that it is happening at the same time. Here, the Battle of Actium is narrated because the actions take place after the Battle of Actium. He says in the context, I would have fought by land, where I was stronger, you hindered it. Yet, when I fought at sea, forsook me fighting, and, O stain to honor, O lasting shame, I knew not that I fled, but fled to follow you. Remember the description by one of the soldiers that the wind blew her away, and Antony like a stupid lover had to follow her. This is narrated, not acted. That is to say, it does not actually happen on the stage. On page 57, Abel's affair with Cleopatra is narrated. All for Love is full of narration. Antony says, no matter where, since he's no longer mine. He took unkindly, that I forbade him Cleopatra's sight, because I feared he loved her. The language is quite easy-flowing. It is not like Shakespeare's language at all, although it lacks the depth. It is much easier to be read. Language of All for Love is not as rich as Antony and Cleopatra's language. What about the wrongs which has been occurred concerning the use of the unity of place in particular? It is that Octavia in Shakespeare's play does not come to Egypt. We do not see her in Egypt but in Rome, and this is something good. On the contrary, Dryden had to bring her over to Egypt because of the unity of place. This makes a sort of inflation of the strength of the play as a whole. Due to the fact that he is one of the neoclassicists, he had to stick to the same place. In Antony and Cleopatra, we do not see this happening at all. Octavia is still in Rome, does not move a span out of it. She comes to Egypt in All for Love to get her husband back, and to save his fame as well. This is the end of our subject. Please, do not forget to click notification bell, like, share, comment, subscribe my channel.